Welcome back to the agenda with your Missoula County Commissioners. I'm Juanita Vero, and I'm here with my fellow commissioners, Josh Slotnick and Dave Strohmeyer. And today we're joined by our own Shane Zrak, Chief Public Works Officer for Missoula County. Shane, this is your third time on?
Second or third, somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay, so we've just had a really snowy weekend. Tell us, Public Works.
You guys are kicking back probably, yeah. I suspect.
Yeah, and so normally it's a 5-day work week, so they were out, and this week was a long weekend. It was a 3-day weekend. Crews are called out, and so they're working Saturday, Sunday, Monday, when normally everybody else has the day off. And they're out working.
And Juanita and I went out there to say hi to the crew at 5 a.m., and they were already, those trucks were already leaving the compound to do their work.
We even had donuts. And nope, trucks were already rolling out.
No, and I just got to say, I was out of state, or I would have been there too.
Yep, no, that's okay, Josh. No, they are dedicated, and I think a lot of the public probably they don't recognize the fact that those folks are out the door that early, and to do all the take care of all the miles of roadway. We've got 450 miles of roads that we've got to clear, every snow event, and so it takes a while.
How do you guys prepare for that? Give us a little education on.
So that starts in the summer. We are stockpiling material. We have our own crusher, and so we're crushing material that we're going to place during the wintertime. Generally, I think crushing probably around 15,000 yards and then trying to stockpile. And so we'll stockpile in the Sealy area, the Condon area. We've got a site in Potomac that we stockpile. And then here in Missoula, we've got the pit up Miller Creek that we have some stockpiled sand there. And then we've got sanding material out at the Y. And then we're stockpiling clear out in the 9 Mile area.
Nothing further south than Miller Creek? We don't have anything?
We have a site in Lolo.
Okay.
Yep.
So Shane, is this different than compare and contrast the city of Missoula and Missoula County, because they don't use sanding material within the city limits. Is that correct?
Yeah. Because of air quality issues, they don't use it. And we don't generally use the sanding material in like the urban area, but as we get further out, we're using sanding material. But we do have de-icer. So we've got a mag chloride and a de-icer truck that we use in the urban area, just like the city does. Obviously, that's part of the preparation too. We've got 2 large tanks that we keep on site at Public Works that we fill with mag chloride for winter maintenance. And then part of that we use too in the summertime for dust abatement. But I guess just additional preparation in the summertime too. You're repairing plows that may have been damaged the previous winter, so the mechanics are focused generally in the summertime, and in the fall months, making sure that we're prepared with equipment for the coming winter. And so, that's repairing sanders. So, we've got dump trucks that we convert to plow trucks. So we've got to mount the plows on the dump trucks, and then the truck bed itself. So that dump bed, then we slide a sander box in. And so that takes time to do all of that.
How many miles of road are you guys responsible for?
Roughly 450 miles.
450 miles, and we have a crew of how many?
17 down in Missoula that operate, and then 5 in the Sealy area, Sealy Condon.
So with all those roads, and the snow falls on all the roads at roughly the same time.
Right.
How do you prioritize? Which roads get plowed first?
So we look at, school bus routes are probably the main focal point, right? So we want to make sure that and that's why they're leaving at 5. They got to try to beat all the school buses so that they have clear roads when they're moving the kids to school. And then we also, in the urban area where the mountain line operates, we want to make sure we're clearing the mountain line routes as well too, along with the school bus routes. And then it's prioritization then focuses more on where are higher volume roadways, where are those collectors, where are most of the people driving. So your residential streets are probably not going to be hit till later. And we've got a priority 1, priority 2 system, and those residential streets are generally on a priority 2, so they're probably going to be hit the next day, right, with the plow. They may not be getting service that first day. Although they'll try, they may not get there.
Can people see a map of this?
Yep. We do have a map on our website that you can go.
What's the website called?
We will get it linked to this podcast.
I would just say link it. Thank you. I do not have that memorized.
Shane, speaking of mapping and responsibilities and such, are there any shared responsibilities or agreement to swap responsibilities within the city limits?
Yep. Yeah, we have an agreement with the city where it makes sense for them just because of annexation. The city has annexed spots where, there's portions of county roads that are sort of inside the city boundaries still. It's kind of a weird annexation boundary system that exists today. And so it doesn't make sense for the county to go plow a short segment of county road where the city's, plowing up to it. So what we've done is we've sat down with the city and said, all right, where does it make sense for us to trade? And they pick up locations and we pick up locations for them. So, yeah, it's good to have that collaboration with the city.
So before we turned the mics on, we were talking about how this latest snow event went and what people's calls were most about. And it seems like there's some misconceptions out there around plowing.
Yeah.
Well, can you speak to that?
Myth busting.
Myth busting. Let's bust some myths.
I think there's general myths in general with what we do. But, I mean, if you're just focused on the winter maintenance, I think the most common comment we receive is, I pay my property taxes and our road should be cleared by now. And the sad reality is the amount of revenue that we collect through property taxes
the
doesn't...
$67 that goes to the road fund.
Yeah, whatever that number is, right? Like it probably pays for one trip. The entire amount they pay property taxes probably pays for one trip to get a plow truck out to their site. And so,
wait, can we break that down a bit? Because that makes it sound like the entirety of their property taxes pays for one road trip. What you really mean to say is,
if you took the amount of money that they pay that goes to the
actual
road
amount.
fund, it would cover one trip with a plow down the road.
I guess what I'm getting at is people need to understand like that that very small portion goes to the road fund.
Or a very cheap wheelbarrow and a shovel from Ace Hardware.
Yeah, but you're right, Juan. I think if you look at it, I would say, it's just rough average. I've not actually gone out and looked at what the exact number is. If on average, what's the road fund receive from one property? But I would say you're probably in the neighborhood of like $100 a year, an entire year. And so, the cost of paying for fuel, the cost to pay the operator, the cost to buy the truck. If you add all that up, that's probably it would account for the one trip out to them. And so, I think you combine all the funds, we're able to provide a service where we can get out there at least on a daily basis. But so I think back to the misconceptions. I think there's a clear misunderstanding maybe of the value that they're receiving versus the amount of money that they're paying in taxes. And, I think if you look at this holistically, though, I always try to compare this to, what folks pay for other services. And I'll use like my internet service or my cell phone service where or my wife and we had 3 phones. We're paying, I think $150 a month for a cell phone service, right? That's what you might pay for just an entire year for your road service.
Wow.
And so... And that's just one example. But if you look at like your garbage and
Netflix,
your Netflix, like all of those things added up, like we provide a pretty good service for what you're having to pay in property taxes. Like you're getting a ton of service for what folks pay in property taxes. And so I think that's probably the biggest misconception of just like the broader picture. Snow removal, I think, the biggest challenge is and we were talking about this earlier before we got on, is that we don't have the ability to stop at every driveway and approach to clear their snow. And so the drivers are out there pushing snow. They're clearing the road. They're focused on clearing the road. And that means that snow is getting pushed to the side of the road and it ends up blocking driveways and approaches. And, there's no way that we can clear every driveway just because we have so many miles. They're just trying to get the road cleared. And so that falls back on the folks that want to use those approaches. And that's probably the most common call we receive is that I just cleared my driveway and you came through and plowed snow. And it's not intentional. And it's not something that, our operators are out trying to cause problem. It's just they have so many miles to go get through that they just don't have time to go clear every driveway. So.
And the alternative is not plowing the road at all. Which
we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
So Shane, you're on the edge of a big transition.
Yeah.
And interestingly, been involved in public works and transportation in your whole working adult life.
Yeah.
And even maybe part of his adolescent life. Shane is only 35 years old. So.
Actually, super young to be moving on. He just started so young. What are some lessons learned here you think people should know about? Someone who's been working in the world of roads and transportation
How
for
to
20
plan so
plus
well
years.
for retirement while you're so young and healthy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, start working for MDT as a teenager.
Right. Out of my entire career, the biggest takeaway is just relationships, probably. I can go back and look at just from my engineering career, starting back in college even, I was not focused. I would say I was a good student, but I wasn't focused on I want to get A's. My goal was to get out of school. I wanted to just get the diploma, get out, work, which meant that, when I got out of school, I felt like I was pretty intelligent, but there were a lot of folks that, were getting straight A's that were super smart. So I didn't come out of school with this bank of knowledge of just really understanding every concept in the engineering world. I think where I became successful is the ability to just work with people, have good relationships, partnerships, cross collaboration across agencies.
I got to ask you something. Or was that your background?
What's that?
I guess we're asking similar things. I was wondering, can you teach that? Can you learn that in school? That sort of emotional intelligence? Or do you feel like you just have to have it?
You learned that from your family?
I don't know that it was anything I learned in growing up or from family. I don't think. I think, I don't know where you learn that. I think that's just a life.
How not to do it,
right? Maybe that's just a life lesson growing up. Just having friends and doing those things.
But I think it's trainable. Could you train employees?
What I would say is I would much rather hire employees that are just easy to get along with, right? Than that have skill sets. Just because I just don't know that I've ever seen where that's just something that you train people on, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, though, when you ask me what's my, what are some big takeaways, I would just tell you as far as just being an engineering professional, it wasn't the knowledge that I had that I'm relying on. I have some basic knowledge and concept, and I got an engineering license, right? I was smart enough to get through the process to get a license. But I'm not one of those engineers that are just know so much and have detailed background in a specific area. I think the success I have in the engineering world comes mainly, though, from just being able to get along with people and build those relationships. I would tell you that, the best information I ever got from anybody that I worked with was one of the district administrators at MDT, and he had started out in the maintenance world driving plow trucks, and he worked all the way up to becoming the district administrator, which is that's a huge thing. He didn't have a college degree.
Wow.
And he was leading one of the 5 districts in Montana. His advice to me, and I think this was something that came intuitive to me, but he put it into words, was you got to take any opportunity to help people, because you never know when you're going to need help, right? And if you're that attitude of we'll just help as many people as we can, you're going to get that back returned at some point in your life, your career, whatever. So
well, and I absolutely appreciate the kind of the sensibility you've brought to Public Works here in Missoula in terms of how do we get to yes? Government too often, and oftentimes deservedly, has the reputation of quickly defaulting to saying no. Yep. But how can we work with folks to actually help them out?
I've seen you do great work in public. I've said, Shane, put the public in public works, dealing with neighborhood groups who oppose each other, and do a great job of listening to them and demonstrating a little bit of empathy and explaining the situation without losing your cool, even if they have already lost theirs, and ending up with these 2 neighborhood groups who don't agree, come talk to us and say, we don't like this, but Shane was great. Shane was awesome, and I don't like blah, blah, blah. And that's exemplary. It's how we ought to behave.
And that dedication to service is an incredible example.
So, Dave, back to your comment of having to get to yes, though. What I would tell you is, working at MDT for a long time, it was more focused on policy and rather than how do we get to yes with the communities. And so,
why was that?
I don't know. I think that's a leadership decision, Juan, and I think it's probably ingrained. You get 2,000 employees at MDT, and you have that kind of mentality ingrained over time. I think it just kind of sticks. But not every community is the same, and how you treat Whitefish would be different than how you treat Hamilton, right? The things they want and the culture they have in their communities are completely different. And I think MDT had this is not a criticism on them. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. It's just a matter of fact. They treated everybody the same, and not every community had the same expectations. And so what I really love and enjoy about working with the county and you three specifically is that you have that attitude of, we want to find a way to yes, and not all the communities are the same, and they all have different wants and needs. And how can we best, provide the services that those communities want? And I love that. And so I've been super happy working here. And it's, for me to leave is not because I don't like working here. It's because I can leave, for one, and two, I've got a 4-year-old that I just want to spend as much time with him as he grows up as I possibly can. And I'm fortunate to have that opportunity.
Oh, that's great. So what are the biggest challenges Public Works face right now?
Funding. And I don't know that that's any different from any other organization. And whether it's water, wastewater, roads, bridges, infrastructure funding that's available at the local level is nowhere near the needs that are there to cover the costs. So anyway.
Over the course of your career, has that ever been different?
Nope. When I started at MDT, I think it was probably my third year at MDT, I was, given a position where I had to manage pavement preservation across like the western fifth of the state. And I remember, we put together all this information, the miles of roadway, and each road specifically broken out, like what are the improvements that are needed on each segment of road and the costs associated with that. And we would be given a budget of say like $15 million to cover the cost of pavement preservation across that western fifth of the state. And I recall it being somewhere in the neighborhood of like $250 million in needs, and it was
so do $250 million with $15 million.
Right.
And I suspect the public expectations for level of service has not gone down.
No. And it was, it would be brutal. Like, we would get our maintenance staff together or construction staff together, and we would sit down and try to prioritize, where's that 15 million go? Where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck? And at the end of the day, I mean, you're just like, it was clear, there were winners and losers. And it's unfortunate because the needs were always there, but we were never able to do everything we could do. So it's no different than here. And, I guess maybe just some numbers. I've sat down and we've crunched numbers on what the needs really are for our roads, and just the paved roads alone.
And we're talking just roads, not bridges, not dirt roads,
just paved roads. And
Paved
there's 65 miles roughly of paved roads in Missoula County that we maintain. And if you looked at a basic maintenance process and service of that asphalt, we should be doing a chip seal and an overlay, say year 1, and a chip seal in year 10. In year 20, maybe you do another overlay. Ideally, maybe you get another chip seal, and get another 10 years out of that. So you get 30 years out of your pavement.
Before you have to completely redo it.
Do it again, yeah. And so, if you were going to do something like that, we should probably be spending, in the $2.5 million range on our asphalts. And we probably spend $500,000. And so we continue to go backwards, and our asphalts continue to degrade.
And haven't we seen a really steep jump in the price of asphalt, greater than the rate of inflation?
Josh, I would say it's probably greater than the rate of inflation. When I started 6 years ago, I think we were around $45 a ton for just a commercial grade B asphalt. And we are at $71 or $72 a ton right now.
Yeah, why is that, or what are the contributing factors?
This is me speculating on it, but there's a couple factors. Obviously,
or 2019 versus 2025.
Yeah, I think the price of oil has gone up, and so there's that, right? So asphalt is an oil-based product, but you also have, I think there's another factor of, the material costs of just the gravel itself. You guys experience this when you've got a gravel pit down in the Bitterroot area that, they want to expand, and that, there's opposition to that. So that's a resource that is hard to come by now. And so the local gravel companies they're basically hauling in material from miles away, because the only way they can get it is to get into more of these rural portions of Montana and haul that in. And so there's a haul cost that increases the cost of that material. And I think another factor is that we only have one provider in Missoula.
Yeah,
right?
that's gotta
right. So there's not stiff competition to keep our prices low. And so I think all of those factor into the cost of the asphalt.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers you just rattled off, I mean, that's like 75-80% increase in 6 years, and inflation hasn't been that high over the last.
And I hate to even bring this up as a possibility, but are we reaching a point where we might have to contemplate tearing out? I guess just abandoning some of our paved roads and turning them back into just gravel roads?
Yeah, and we haven't done that yet. We do have a reclaimer, and so instead of completely abandoning the asphalt, and one thing we could do is and basically what a reclaimer does is, if you can imagine a rototiller that you don't use in your garden, you just use it on asphalt, right?
It's a beast of a machine.
Yeah, right. Or you can use it. We use it on our gravel roads too, but it just grinds up the material, and we can add an emulsion in there, so you can essentially kind of repave a road for a very low cost. We haven't tried that yet. We've done it with placing millings, and we've had good luck with that.
I was just going to ask you to talk about millings, because unless you're in this world, probably wouldn't know what those are and how they play into cost savings.
Yeah. So the millings we receive, it's essentially ground up asphalt. When MDT goes and resurfaces, they'll call it a mill and fill. So they'll mill off, say, 4 inches of material and then repave 4 inches back. Those millings are offered up to local governments. And so we've been taking advantage of that over the last several years, and we've been able to resurface, I'm going to throw out like maybe 20 miles of road, plus or minus, somewhere in that neighborhood of gravel road that has basically a hard asphalt surface. What we picked up last year was the reclaimer, and so what we can do, instead of grading those millings with a grader and then rolling them and then adding an emulsion on top of it, what we do is we inject that emulsion in as that pulverizer grinds up the millings as we've placed them already.
So it's a one-step process instead of 3?
Yeah, kind of. We'll still have to roll it, but so you'll grade it. We'll hit it with a grader, kind of get the crown on it, get the alignment set, and then you come back through with that pulverizer that you have the emulsion in it that acts as it's a new binder, if you will, to keeps the rocks bound. And then come in with a chip seal, and so I think we're probably $5,000 a mile in cost for adding that emulsion, right? And so to compare that, we're anywhere in the neighborhood of like probably and this is depending on the thickness of asphalt and the width of the asphalt, somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000 to $180,000 per mile to put down asphalt, right? Compared to $5,000, right? And so the millings has been a pretty good savings for us, where we can turn what were gravel roads into asphalt roads. And as long as MDT is willing to continue to give us the millings, we're willing to take them and place them. We've got 30,000 yards stockpiled in Lolo right now, which is it's about equivalent to another 9 to 10 miles of gravel roads in the Lolo area that you'll be turned to asphalt, essentially. So it's a really affordable way for us to get a paved surface.
And for folks who've stuck with us this long and are wondering what MDT stands for, that's the Montana Department of Transportation, folks.
Yeah. More dirt tomorrow or something.
Well, you're talking about those cost savings. Do we want to talk about equipment or how?
Yeah, that's a great thing. Yeah, because you've done an awesome job of getting good, cheap equipment.
Some more myth busting.
Yeah. From our friends to the south.
Well, and really across the country. So I think in the first or second year that I started, one of the mechanics had suggested, like, hey, look into federal equipment. They have got excess equipment, and he worked for a fire department, and they were able to get something. And we're like, we looked into it, and sure enough, we were able to pick up like over a course of several years, about $750,000 worth of equipment, excess equipment that the feds had. They were no longer using it. They give it to you. You just have to go get it, right? So the only cost we had was get it delivered to Missoula. And we picked up things as far as like Virginia. So I mean, we're hauling stuff across the country. So there's a little bit of cost there, but when you compare it to the cost of something brand new, we were doing well, and we got really important pieces of equipment, like side dump. We picked up a couple loaders, which are super expensive. We're just looking at trying to buy a used loader right now for $200,000, and we could get one for probably $10,000, with repairs and delivery, and so that was a pretty big thing. As far as the trucks go, we're in a situation where our trucks were really old and a lot of miles, and they're breaking down a lot. The cost of a new plow truck you're probably in that $250,000 to $350,000 range. They're very expensive pieces of equipment. The interesting thing is we were looking around kind of the western part of the country with different dealerships, just trying to pick up some used affordable equipment, and we just happened to run into a dealer that had picked up a bunch of plows from Salt Lake County, and so we bought a few of those and then reached out to Salt Lake County and said, hey, how often are you replacing your equipment? And they're like, we do it pretty much, annually. And so we've been able to pick up trucks from them for a very low price. We're picking up 7 of them right now. We're working on a purchase to acquire 7 plow trucks. They're all single axle. axles. They all have less than 50,000 miles, so that 50 to 30,000 mile range. Wow. They're selling them to us for $49,000 a truck. And they come equipped with the sanders, the plows, so they're like, I would say, I'm not going to say they're turnkey. We'll get them and we'll have to do some repairs. We'll probably replace the plows. We like a different style of plow, so we keep our old plows and we mount those on. But for the price of one truck, we're getting 3, 4, 5 trucks, right?
Yeah,
like
that's creative.
When we have to do those things, because we can't afford to get new equipment. There's just not room in the budget to do it. But I would say this. We were very far in the hole when it came to equipment, and over the last 6 years, I think we've been able to get ourselves in a situation where it's not so critical. But part of that, too, is like we've communicated to you as commissioners, like we needed more funding, and you were able to provide that funding. And like without that, we wouldn't be able to do these things, right? So I think you guys deserve a lot of credit, too, for figuring out how to get us funding. So.
And if it wasn't your first day when we had a chat in the hallway about the gas tax, and then went on a year-long epic making it happen. You want to talk about the gas tax for a minute?
Yeah, that...
Way to pull a scab off of that.
For people that don't know and that are still listening, that might be interested, state law allowed for local governments to have their own local option gas tax, and it maxed out at 2 cents. You could have anywhere from And
I've been on the books for 45 years,
and nobody took advantage of it.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. I didn't know that time frame, but it did been around a long time, and nobody took it. And I think it was back in the 2017 legislative session, or was it 2017 or 2015 legislative session?
In 2017, where they said, you guys should just don't come asking for more BARSA money. Just go do this.
Yeah, right. So the state at that time is, MDT and the locals were saying we need more state gas tax, and that hadn't been increased since, like, I want to say, I'm going to throw out 92. I think that was the last time it had been increased. And you're right, that at that legislative session, they did do, it was a graduated increase, and I think that graduated increase was, over, I think, like a 4 or 5 year period. I can't remember the specifics, but it was, a certain, like 2 or 3 cents a year it would increase. And then 30% or 33% would go to counties, 33% would go to cities, and 33% would go to the state. And during that process of, creating BARSA, it's the Bridge and Road Safety Accountability Act is what BARSA stood for. In the process of creating that, many legislators pointed to the fact that local governments had this ability to create a local option gas tax and said, if you guys need money so much, you need to go create this local option gas tax. Go pass it. And we had those discussions at the MPO, or the Metropolitan Planning Organization, at that level for several years. Nobody was willing to try to take advantage of it, though. And so when I started here, I always thought it was a good idea. And so that was my first conversation with Josh, is like, we should probably look into this, because we could generate a serious amount of money and take advantage of the folks that are coming from out of state that use our roads, where otherwise we're paying for it in property taxes, and those folks that are coming from out of state or out of county aren't paying for any of it. We're paying all of it locally. And so it made sense to try to diversify, our income, but also make it more fair so that all the users were paying and not just the folks that are paying property taxes. And so we did. We worked with a local group and got it on the ballot and passed it. Unfortunately, I think we probably passed it at the most inopportune time, because once
June
it was passed,
right?
It was the next legislative session was right around the corner, and it was obviously easy pickings for some of the folks at the legislature to get rid of it.
Why did they want to take it away?
I'm just going to speculate. I don't know. You'd have to ask them, but I think there were obviously the petroleum lobby didn't like it for whatever reason. I think
other counties were considering it.
Yeah. There were other counties. I think from a sales perspective, if you live on or if your gas station is on kind of the outskirts of the county, you could easily argue and say that, well, the next gas station down doesn't have to worry about this 2 cents, and we do, and then we're going to have loss of sales. But from what we saw, the prices weren't greater than the prices that were outside of Missoula County. Even with that 2 cents, they were still lower than the competing surrounding area.
Which is all the more ironic since the state legislature here in Montana is quick to try to get the federal government out of their business, yet here is the heavy hand of state government inserting itself into a local issue that was even adopted by the voters in Missoula County, not the three of us just scheming.
No, they overrode the will of the voters. People unelected by the folks who live here had their will stomped on from afar.
Back to why funding is important. Like we talked about just the asphalts, right? So we're probably short $2.5 million annually.
And that gas tax would have brought in how much?
It was at that time we were, I want to say 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, somewhere in there annually, and we split that with the city.
Yep.
But I think it's even more now. I think you're probably $1.5 million, and then we split that. You're $750,000. I'm just total guess, but I almost guarantee. But I think if you look at the needs on the bridges too, like we have 126 bridges in the county that we're responsible to maintain, and if you look at the cost of replacing those, we should be spending in that $3.5 million range on our bridges. In addition to the $1 million we get right now for bridges through property taxes, we need another 3.5 to cover the cost of maintaining those structures. And that basically means if we were going to get a 75-year lifespan out of every bridge at the cost of $1,000 a square foot to replace that structure, right? So if you just look at the cost of replacing a bridge, it's about, if you look at the deck surface, it's about $1,000 per square foot. I think MDT's numbers, it's about $1,200 a square foot. So I think the 1,000 is pretty conservative. We're not trying to, gouge people. It's a very fair number, but we're nowhere near that. We need another $3.5 million to do things correct. And so what we're seeing right now is that, we've deferred maintenance on the bridges. So Boy Scout Bridge is closed right now. We just got a 5-ton load limit posted on Placid Creek Road for the first Owl Creek Bridge. That's impactful. Like you go from having the ability to haul whatever you want to a 5-ton load limit. There's no more concrete trucks going back through there, right? There's
logging,
right?
Yeah, emergency vehicles.
Shane, do you have concerns about what is happening at the federal level with transportation funding? Because as near as I can see, if we thumb our noses at federal funding, we're not going to be able to backfill at the local level to cover these major investments.
Yeah, and just, I guess, to paint the picture of where we are today as this is being recorded, Trump's been in office for, 3-4 weeks. And, lots of cuts being made. And, I don't, want to get too political, but what I would just say is that the Biden administration allocated billions of dollars for local governments, for infrastructure, state and local governments or tribal governments, and more than any other administration had previously, which we absolutely need. I think, where we're seeing the risk, Dave, is that particular funding bill is sunsetting, coming to an end. What is the next funding bill going to look like? But what we saw under the Biden administration, Missoula County and the city of Missoula, the MPO, even the airport, I don't know how many, I would speculate we're easily over $200 million of federal funds that we were able to bring in that we otherwise wouldn't have had. That's $60 million that goes to Russell Street. And that now is probably up in the air whether or not we're going to receive, because we just got word probably a month ago that we received that funding. Highway 200 in East Missoula, there's potential that, the $24 million for that goes away. We don't have grant agreements on that. And so we're not certain if that funding is going to be available or not. And so, I have a lot of concerns that we're not going to get the funding that we need to improve the infrastructure. I would also say we've been submitting applications for bridge repair. We've submitted 2 build grant applications last month for in the neighborhood of $20 million to replace bridges that are fairly critical and are not in that great a shape. And we're going to submit a Protect grant application. That one's replacing 4 bridges in Missoula County, and it's a little bit smaller. That one requires a match. The build grant did not require a match, and so we could get up to $25 million. So that's, if those types of programs go away, what I see, unless we figure out a way at the state level to try to fund our infrastructure, because we can't do it at the local level. I just don't see it happening unless we get a gas tax back and a sizable one. We can't rely on property taxes. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to close more bridges. And it's not Missoula County. We are not in this alone. This is happening all over the state.
That's an important message.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about a apparently a memo from the Trump administration to the U.S. Department of Transportation asking that they prioritize grants towards areas that have high birth rates and high marriage rates. And we've been looking at bridges that need to be repaired regardless of the birth rate or marriage rate in the area. It was the bridge, not the populace, that we were concerned about. And a bunch of these bridges that you mentioned are in rural parts of our county where the population is aging and the birth rate is low, and they've been married for a long time.
Right. Yeah. No, am I concerned? Yeah, I don't know that that's the best way to try to prioritize your infrastructure funding, right? Like, I think it should be based more on, where your needs are, what the infrastructure needs are.
Yeah. And these are competitive grants.
They are, yeah. And I think we've been able to tell compelling stories to receive the funding. And like I said, we've been very successful as a county, as a city, as an MPO to receive federal funds to take care of the infrastructure. We don't have the tax base or the ability to cover the cost to do these. So,
well, Josh and Juanita and I will be doing our best to officiate weddings in the coming year to bolster our competitiveness.
Yeah. We're all ordained ministers.
We're all ordained. Yeah.
Well, I think advocating too at the at the congressional level, reaching out to Sheehy Daines.
Well,
I'm going to be there
in
2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll be back in Washington, D.C., and I think this is a bit of a wake-up call for anyone who is in our listening public out there. If you are concerned about infrastructure, contact your congressional delegation, because this is kind of a call to arms. The dollars that are headed this way and might be headed this way are truly in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Well, Shane, before we close, we ask all guests the same question. Anything you've run into in the past couple weeks that really bears repeating? So anything you picked up in a book or a podcast or a conversation, a song, anything, any tidbit of culture that you feel like it's worthwhile?
Oh man, no. I was trying to think of some little word of wisdom from my 4-year-old.
That's good. That would be good.
It's amazing what the little ones can come up with sometimes. I'm always amazed.
What's his favorite song right now?
Oh, I don't think he has a favorite song.
What do you read to him at night?
So right now we are reading I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Treehouse books.
I am not.
Magic Treehouse, yeah.
Magic Treehouse?
I generally read one of those, and he's 4. I don't know. I think the age range for that one is probably close to like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old.
A little humble brag there.
Well, yeah, he's a smart kid. I'll tell you a story about it, but he's and everybody thinks their kid's like the smartest kid ever, right? But no, he loves those stories. And I'll generally like one of those books. I'll try to read one book a night to him, and they're long. Like some of those are like 100 pagers, and like it's an hour.
You ever skip any pages?
No.
But he'll I don't know listen. Anything about the series. What's the insight, or what does he like about them?
The cool thing, what I like about them is there's the historical nature, right? Like so they are able to time travel a little bit and go back into see dinosaurs or
there's some dinosaurs. Of course, there's dinosaurs.
Well, that's not the only thing. Like it varies, right? So they like San Francisco, fires in San Francisco, right? Okay. It's just historical moments. There's all kinds of different topics, but I think the cool thing is that there's some of them are historical, like in nature, and that he gets to learn from it, right? And he remembers those things, which is a cool way to teach, right? Yeah. And he just listens to the story and he's just happy. But what I would say, as far as reading to him, every time we go to Costco, he wants to go to the book section and he wants to pick out a book, which is really cool. So, he was 3 when this happened. So it was like this past summer, and so I got him a book. And I'm hauling, if you go to Costco, you got to haul like all the groceries into the house. And so I've got like the book sitting out on the deck on our table, and he's sitting at the table, and I'm just walking back and forth, a few times bringing stuff in. And so I come back and I sit down. I'm like, all right, you ready to read? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I want to read chapter 1. And he tells me the title of the chapter. And I look at his mom. I'm like, did you tell him? She's like, no. My wife is a speech pathologist, and she's like constantly, whenever she reads to him, she's like sounding out words. And so he's trying to learn how to read. And so it's one of those moments where you're just like, oh my God.
Wow. Aware of more than you realize.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So anyway, there you go.
Thanks for joining us, Shane.
Yeah. Thanks for all of your work for Missoula County and the citizens of Missoula.
Yeah. Glad you'll be around for a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to The Agenda. If you enjoy these conversations, it would mean a lot if you'd rate and review the show on whichever podcast app you use.
And if you know a friend who would like to keep up with what's happening in local government, be sure to recommend this podcast to them.
The Agenda with the Missoula County Commissioners is made possible with support from Missoula Community Access Television, better known as MCAT, and our staff in the Missoula County Communications Division.
If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email it to communications@missoulacounty.us.
To find out other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in Missoula County, go to missoula.co/county updates.
Thanks for listening.